Exploring the Starry Sky of Wisdom, a deep dive into philosophy, a historical survey with essential readings. Introduction: Why philosophy never goes out of date. 2,500 years ago, Socrates asked on the streets of Athens, "How should one live?" A question that still resonates in every heart. Philosophy, a historical survey with essential readings, authored by Samuel Enoch Stumpf and James Fieser, traces 2,500 years of intellectual history, systematically mapping the evolution of Western philosophy from ancient Greece to the modern era, revealing how humanity has used reason to explore existence, truth, and value. Why has this book become a classic introduction to philosophy, guiding countless thinkers to the heights of wisdom? Let us embark on this millennia-spanning dialogue to uncover the timeless allure of philosophy. Chapter 1: The Spark of Ancient Greek Wisdom. Philosophy began in ancient Greece, igniting the spark of civilization. In the 6th century BC, Thales of Miletus proposed that all is water, initiating a rational inquiry into the origin of the cosmos. Philosophy, a historical survey with essential readings, states, philosophy began with the quest for natural laws, seeking to replace myth with reason. Thales argued that water is the fundamental element of the universe, while his student Anaximander proposed the boundless as the origin, suggesting the world emerges from and returns to the infinite. Heraclitus went further, asserting everything flows, using fire and logos to explain the universe's flux and inherent order. His famous saying, "You cannot step into the same river twice," not only reveals the nature of change but also hints at philosophy's contemplation of eternity and impermanence. Pythagoras introduced mathematics into philosophy, believing that number is the essence of the cosmos. Pythagoras' mathematical philosophy was not an isolated phenomenon but a product of ancient Greek culture. In the 6th century BC, Greek city-states like Athens and Miletus thrived through trade and navigation, fostering an open intellectual climate. Philosophy, a historical survey with essential readings, notes Greece's geographical position facilitated cultural exchange, sparking inquiries into cosmic laws. The Mediterranean trade network exposed Greeks to Egyptian geometry and Babylonian astronomy, with Thales reportedly learning to measure pyramid shadows in Egypt. This cross-cultural exchange provided the nourishment for philosophy's birth. A Miletus merchant named Artemis wrote in his diary in 580 BCE, "Egyptian mathematics astonished me, but Thales says the universe's secret lies in water, not numbers." Such dialogues reflect how early philosophers saw truth amidst cultural intersections. Pythagoras' school took it further, blending mathematics with mysticism, viewing number not just as a tool but as the soul of the cosmos. For example, they discovered that musical chords could be expressed numerically, proposing the idea of cosmic harmony. This concept influenced not only astronomy but also Plato's theory of forms. In contrast, China's Warring States period saw the 100 schools of thought emphasize cosmic order, like the Taoist Tao or Confucian rites, but Greek philosophy prioritized logical reasoning over moral instruction. For instance, Zhuangzi's On the Equality of Things sees all things as equal, echoing Heraclitus' everything flows, but the latter emphasizes the rational principle of logos. This cross-cultural comparison highlights Greek philosophy's unique contribution, combining curiosity with logic to lay the foundation for science and philosophy. Pythagoras' school viewed numbers as mystical forces, proposing the concept of harmony that influenced music theory and astronomy. His ideas inspired a woman named Sophia in Athens who, after hearing discussions of numerical harmony at a 5th century BC marketplace, began pondering whether the universe is as orderly as mathematics suggests. Her notes read, "If all is number, does the human soul also have its proportion?" Such questions foreshadowed philosophy's shift from nature to the self. Socrates redirected philosophy's focus from the cosmos to humanity. Through his method of dialogue, he pressed Athenians with questions like what is virtue, and can justice be taught? Philosophy, a historical survey with essential readings, describes Socrates began with ignorance, sparking reflection in others. In Athens, he was charged with corrupting the youth and impiety, yet during his trial, he insisted, an unexamined life is not worth living. Socrates' method of questioning was not just a teaching tool but a way of life. By relentlessly asking questions, he exposed contradictions in others' beliefs, guiding them toward truth. Philosophy, a historical survey with essential readings, writes, Socrates' questions aim to awaken dormant reason. For example, in a dialogue with the politician Euthydemus, Socrates probed what is justice, until Euthydemus admitted flaws in his definition. This approach, called the maieutic method, likened Socrates to a midwife helping others give birth to wisdom. Socrates' trial vividly showcased his philosophical courage. In 399 BCE, facing a death sentence in an Athenian court, he declared, "I would rather die than abandon the pursuit of truth." His student Xenophon recorded, "Socrates' composure showed me that philosophy is the courage to defend one's convictions." This spirit inspired a modern Athenian journalist named Lydia, who, in 2020, used Socratic questioning to expose logical flaws in politicians' rhetoric. She wrote, "Socrates taught me that questioning is not just a challenge but a way to awaken public reason." Socrates' method of dialogue remains profoundly influential. In modern education, teachers use open-ended questions to spark student thought, such as in Harvard philosophy classes where professors ask, "What is the essence of freedom?" to guide Socratic exploration. This method also applies to psychotherapy, where cognitive behavioral therapy uses questioning to help patients reflect on negative beliefs. Socrates' legacy proves that philosophy is not just speculation but a tool for transforming lives. Ultimately, he chose to drink hemlock, proving philosophy's courage through action. His student Plato, deeply moved, developed the theory of forms, arguing that the true world consists of eternal, unchanging forms, with the sensory world as their mere shadow. In the Republic, Plato's allegory of the cave illustrates humans as prisoners seeing only shadows on a wall, with philosophers tasked to escape the cave and seek the light of truth. Aristotle, building on and surpassing Plato, proposed the four causes: material, formal, efficient, and final, centering his philosophy on substance and creating systems of logic, metaphysics, and ethics. His Nicomachean Ethics advocates the golden mean, suggesting happiness lies in the balanced practice of reason and virtue. For instance, he advised pursuing courage by avoiding recklessness and cowardice, finding the moderate path. Aristotle's Lyceum attracted a young Athenian scholar named Alexander, not the Macedonian king, who noted, "Aristotle taught me that happiness is not wealth but the art of rational living." Ancient Greek philosophy laid the cornerstone of Western thought, igniting the spark of reason and inquiry that continues to inspire. Chapter 2: Faith and Reason in the Middle Ages. Medieval philosophy, under the canopy of Christianity, wove reason and faith together to address the ultimate question of God and humanity. Augustine, a pioneer of this era, blended Platonism with Christianity, proposing the dichotomy of the city of God and the earthly city. Philosophy, a historical survey with essential readings, notes, Augustine shifted philosophy inward, exploring the soul's relation to God. In Confessions, he recounts his youthful indulgence and conversion, arguing that humanity, fallen through original sin, is redeemed through faith and God's grace. His view of time is profound, suggesting it is an extension of the soul, not merely a physical flow. For example, he wrote, "The past no longer exists, the future is yet to come, and only the present is eternal in God." In the 13th century, Thomas Aquinas built a Christian theological system on Aristotelian foundations. In Summa Theologica, he offered the 5 ways to prove God's existence through motion, causation, necessity, gradation, and purpose. For instance, he argued that the universe's motion requires a first mover, namely God. Aquinas also developed the natural law theory, asserting that morality stems from God-given reason, influencing later legal and ethical thought. Imagine a monk named Thomas at the University of Paris in 1270, puzzled by how God can be both omnipotent and benevolent. Through Summa Theologica, he realized reason's role is to understand faith, not replace it. In contrast to Aquinas' systematic approach, William of Ockham is known for Occam's razor, advocating do not multiply entities unnecessarily, simplifying metaphysics and challenging scholastic complexity. Occam's minimalism was not the only voice in medieval philosophy. John Duns Scotus proposed the principle of individuation, arguing that each being's uniqueness stems from its thisness, not abstract universals. His ideas challenged Aquinas' systematic theology, emphasizing individual experience. For example, Socrates argued that a tree's uniqueness cannot be fully explained by general laws, planting seeds for later individualism. A Parisian nun named Margaret wrote in 1300, "Socrates showed me that each person is unique in God's eyes." Her insight reflects how medieval philosophy shifted from theology to human concerns. Meanwhile, Jewish philosopher Maimonides, in Guide for the Perplexed, reconciled Aristotle with Mosaic law, proposing God's negative attributes, suggesting humans can only describe what God is not. This approach aligns with Occam's minimalism, emphasizing reason's limits. Medieval philosophy's diversity also included mysticism. In the 13th century, Meister Eckhart advocated divine contemplation to unite with God, arguing that while reason is vital, intuition better approaches truth. His follower, German nun Hildegard, wrote, "Eckhart's teachings showed me that philosophy is not just argumentation but the soul's elevation." These diverse voices enriched medieval philosophy, addressing the tension between faith and reason, paving the way for modern philosophy's rational turn. Occam's ideas sowed seeds for modern science. For instance, in debates over how angels move, Occam argued for simple explanations over complex entities. This minimalism inspired a 14th-century Oxford scholar named Edward, who wrote, "Occam taught me that philosophy should be like a blade, cutting away needless speculation." Medieval philosophy, through the clash of faith and reason, explored the mysteries of the soul and cosmos, preparing the ground for modern philosophy's awakening. Chapter 3: The Rational Awakening of Modern Philosophy. In the 17th century, philosophy embraced a rational awakening, with Descartes' "I think, therefore I am" redefining its starting point. Philosophy, a historical survey with essential readings, writes, "Through universal doubt, Descartes established reason's absolute authority. He posited a deceiver manipulating the senses, yet I think remains undeniable, laying the foundation for subjective philosophy." His dualism distinguished mind from body, viewing the body as a machine and the soul as thought, profoundly shaping modern science and philosophy. Descartes' dualism was inseparable from the 17th century scientific revolution. Galileo's telescope and Newton's laws revealed the universe's mechanical nature, and Descartes sought to provide a philosophical foundation for this worldview. Philosophy, a historical survey with essential readings, notes, Descartes' mechanism offered metaphysical support for science. He viewed the body as a machine governed by physical laws, with the soul as an independent thinking entity, advancing the separation of medicine and psychology. A Parisian doctor named Henry, inspired by Descartes, wrote in 1665, "Descartes' theory made me rethink anatomy. The body is as precise as a clock." However, dualism sparked debate. How do mind and body interact? Descartes suggested the pineal gland as the connection, a hypothesis later questioned. Spinoza's monism countered this, arguing that mind and body are two attributes of a single substance, resolving dualism's contradictions. Meanwhile, China's Ming Dynasty philosopher Wang Yangming proposed mind is principle, emphasizing the unity of mind and world, resembling Spinoza but focusing on moral practice rather than metaphysical argument. This cross-cultural comparison highlights the diversity of modern philosophy. Descartes' rationalism also influenced mathematics, with his coordinate system forming the basis of analytic geometry. A London mathematician named Isaac wrote in 1680, "Descartes' coordinates showed me that philosophy and mathematics share a common root in exploring cosmic order." The fusion of modern philosophy and science laid the foundation for contemporary knowledge systems. Descartes' meditations on first philosophy inspired a Dutch student named Isabella, who noted in 1660 at Leiden University, "Descartes' doubt made me re-examine my beliefs. Reason is my only anchor." Spinoza challenged Descartes' dualism with monism, arguing that God, nature, and substance are one. In ethics, he used a geometric method to argue that emotions are governed by reason, and freedom comes from understanding necessity. For example, he suggested that anger stems from misunderstanding, and understanding its cause brings peace. Spinoza's ideas inspired an Amsterdam bookseller named Jacob, who wrote in 1675, "Spinoza showed me that freedom is not escaping fate but embracing it." Leibniz's monadology explained the world as composed of monads, each reflecting the universe in a pre-established harmony. His optimism, claiming this is the best of all possible worlds, drew Voltaire's satire. In 1670, Blaise Pascal, in Penzias, proposed Pascal's wager: if God exists, faith yields infinite gain. If not, the loss is minimal, so one should believe. This thought experiment remains debated. Isabella shared at an Oxford seminar, Pascal's wager made me see faith as a rational choice in the face of the unknown. Modern philosophy's rational light challenged traditional authority, laying the intellectual groundwork for the Enlightenment. Chapter 4: The Pinnacle of Enlightenment and Critique. The 18th century Enlightenment elevated reason, with Locke, Hume, and Kant pushing philosophy toward experience and critique. Locke's essay concerning human understanding proposed the tabula rasa, asserting that knowledge comes from sensory experience, rejecting innate ideas. He viewed government as a social contract, emphasizing individual rights, influencing the U.S. Declaration of Independence. Locke's social contract theory not only shaped political philosophy but also drove 18th century social change. His two treatises of government argued that a government's legitimacy stems from the people's consent, and rebellion is justified if the contract is breached. This idea inspired the American Revolution of 1776 and the French Revolution of 1789. Philosophy, a historical survey with essential readings, writes, Locke's theories provided the philosophical foundation for modern democracy. A Boston printer named Thomas wrote in 1775, Locke convinced me that liberty is an inalienable right beyond a king's reach. His printing press published Common Sense, spreading Locke's ideas to the colonies. Locke's tabula rasa also influenced educational reform, suggesting that children's minds are blank slates shaped by experience, not indoctrination. British educator Mary Wollstonecraft, inspired by Locke, advocated for equal education for women, arguing that women, too, should be shaped by reason. In contrast to Locke's optimism, Hume's skepticism cautioned against reason's limits. He argued that moral sentiments, not reason, drive behavior, such as compassion prompting aid to others. An Edinburgh philanthropist named Anne wrote in 1760, Hume showed me that charity comes from the heart, not logic. Enlightenment philosophy reshaped politics, education, and humanity's understanding of itself and society. A London bookseller named James, inspired by Locke, wrote in 1770, Locke taught me that knowledge comes from observation and liberty from contract. Skepticism challenged causality, arguing that habit, not necessity, shapes belief in cause and effect. Philosophy, a historical survey with essential readings, notes Hume's skepticism awakened Kant, sparking philosophy's Copernican revolution. Hume argued we cannot prove the sun will rise tomorrow, only expect it based on experience. His skepticism shocked an Edinburgh student named Mary, who wrote in 1750, Hume made me question common sense. Philosophy is the courage to break habits. Kant, in Critique of Pure Reason, proposed that knowledge arises from sensory data and rational categories like time and space, which are innate forms of cognition. His categorical imperative in ethics states, act only according to that maxim you can will as a universal law. Imagine a Berlin Humboldt University student named Irene Carter, awestruck by Kant's starry sky above and moral law within. The starry sky shows me cosmic order, and the moral law guides me beyond myself. Kant's critical philosophy pushed reason to its peak, paving the way for modern philosophy's diverse explorations. Chapter 5: The Diverse Explorations of Modern Philosophy. In the 19th and 20th centuries, philosophy entered a pluralistic era, with Hegel, Nietzsche, Wittgenstein, and others expanding its boundaries. Hegel's dialectics, using thesis-antithesis-synthesis, explained history and spirit's evolution, viewing the absolute spirit as realizing itself through contradictions. Philosophy, a historical survey with essential readings, notes Hegel's philosophy sees history as reasons unfolding. His phenomenology of spirit inspired a Heidelberg student named Karl, who wrote in 1830, Hegel's dialectics showed me that contradiction drives progress. Marx adopted Hegel's dialectics, developing historical materialism, emphasizing that economic structures shape society. In the Communist Manifesto, he called for social change, influencing global politics. Nietzsche declared God is dead, challenging traditional morality and advocating for the Bermensch to create personal values. His Thus Spoke Zarathustra poetically urges transcendence of mediocrity. A Munich poet named Franz, inspired by Nietzsche, wrote in 1880, "Nietzsche convinced me that life's meaning is mine to define." In the 20th century, Wittgenstein shifted from logical analysis to language philosophy. His philosophical investigations introduced the language game theory, suggesting meaning arises from language's practical use. For example, "I love you" means differently in a proposal versus a farewell. Irene at the Sorbonne in Paris used language games to analyze daily conversations, discovering how language shapes worldviews. Existentialist Sartre argued existence precedes essence, emphasizing that humans define themselves through free choices. Sartre's view of freedom led philosophy toward deep ethical reflection. He argued that humans, without a predetermined essence, create meaning through action, but this freedom comes with responsibility. Being in nothingness states, man is condemned to be free. For instance, Sartre describes a wartime youth choosing between fighting for his country or caring for his mother, each choice bearing consequences. This anxiety of choice defines existentialism. A Paris calf writer named Claire, inspired by Sartre in 1955, wrote, "Sartre showed me that every choice defines my life." Her novels, themed on existentialism, explored women's freedom in traditional societies. Meanwhile, Albert Camus introduced the absurd, arguing that seeking meaning in a meaningless world is absurd, yet one should create value through rebellion. In The Myth of Sisyphus, he uses Sisyphus's endless task of pushing a boulder to urge persistence despite hopelessness. In contrast, Chinese philosopher Feng Yulin, in A New System of Philosophy, blended Confucianism with Western thought, proposing a theory of realms of life through moral practice. Feng's focus on harmony contrasts with Sartre's emphasis on individual freedom. This cross-cultural comparison highlights modern philosophy's ethical turn from abstract metaphysics to living in a complex world. Sartre and Camus inspired people to confront freedom and the absurd, finding personal meaning. Sartre's Being in Nothingness inspired a French journalist named Jean, who wrote in 1950, "Sartre taught me that freedom is responsibility and creation." Chapter 6: Philosophy's Eternal Questions. Philosophy's core questions, existence, truth, and value, persist across eras. Philosophy, a historical survey with essential readings, writes, "Philosophy is systematic reflection on ultimate questions." Metaphysics asks, why is there something rather than nothing? From Parmenides' being is to Heidegger's question of being. Epistemology explores what is true knowledge. From Plato's forms to Quine's holism, continually reshaping knowledge's boundaries. Ethics asks, what is good? From Aristotle's golden mean to Mill's utilitarianism, probing morality's foundations. In epistemology, 20th century philosopher Karl Popper proposed falsifiability, arguing that scientific theories must be testable. In the 1960s, he debated at the London School of Economics, "Truth is open. Science progresses through trial and error." This inspired Irene's Cambridge thesis. Popper's falsifiability showed me that philosophy is not just speculation but a guide to scientific progress. In metaphysics, Heidegger's Being and Time introduced Dasein, emphasizing that humans understand existence through being toward death. In the 1940s, a German soldier named Hans read it in the trenches, writing, "Heidegger made me face death and rethink life's meaning." In ethics, Mill's utilitarianism, advocating the greatest happiness for the greatest number, influenced modern policy. For example, 19th century reformer James Mill, influenced by his father, advocated universal education, believing happiness requires knowledge. These questions are not just philosophy's core but humanity's eternal beacons. Chapter 7: Philosophy in Dialogue with Modern Life. Philosophy is not just academic but a compass for life. Socrates' Know Thyself teaches us to discover truth through questioning. Imagine a London journalist named Nora rereading Philosophy, a historical survey with essential readings during the 2020 pandemic, writing, "Socrates' dialogue method taught me to listen and question biases in news." Augustine reminds us to look inward for meaning beyond the material. Descartes and Kant provide rational and moral guidance, urging critical thinking in a complex world. Modern philosophy's diversity offers multiple perspectives. Existentialism confronts us with freedom and responsibility, while Nietzsche's Bermensch inspires breaking mediocrity. Wittgenstein's language philosophy highlights how misunderstandings arise from vague language. For example, Irene, during a team meeting, found colleagues' differing views on innovation caused conflict, resolving it by clarifying language. Popper's falsifiability guides us to filter reliable knowledge in an information-saturated age. How does philosophy apply to life? A Silicon Valley engineer named James, inspired in 2023, wrote, "Kant's categorical imperative made me re-examine AI ethics to ensure technology serves human well-being." Philosophy is not just the art of speculation but a guide to action, teaching us to find direction in uncertainty and harmony in conflict. Epilogue: Philosophy illuminates life. From Thales's All is Water to Heidegger's Question of Being, Philosophy, a historical survey with essential readings charts a 2500-year journey of humanity's quest for existence, truth, and value. Why does philosophy endure? Because it is not just accumulated knowledge but the spark of wisdom. Socrates' courage, Kant's starry sky, and Nietzsche's Bermensch remind us to look up in the fog and seek the infinite within the finite. Wherever we are, philosophy, like the starry sky, guides us toward deeper thought and a truer life.